Hello, and welcome to JA Explained. This episode is all about helping your child or teen with JA juggle the emotional challenges of having a chronic condition like arthritis. My name is Jeanne Proefrock, and I myself am a JA parent. My 13-year-old daughter was diagnosed at age 2 with polyarticular JIA. Our guest today, Dr. Jessica Auslander, will share advice on how we as caregivers and parents can help our kids navigate the highs and lows of having a chronic illness. Dr. Auslander is a licensed clinical mental health counselor, psychologist, and JA parent who has been living with arthritis since age 8. So she understands this topic through and through. Dr. Auslander, thank you so much for joining and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you provide some strategies or maybe some techniques that parents can use to help their children navigate the ups and downs of JA? I mean, we all know there's good days and there's bad days. There's flares and there's when we feel like we can take on the world with it.
I like to build those skills outside of arthritis. So whatever skill you're using, you want to carry it across the board. So we talk about fear, right? So if the kids are younger, maybe they're afraid of thunderstorms, right? Very natural fear, right? Maybe they're afraid of thunderstorms. And when the thunderstorm happens, what do we do with kids? We tend to teach them, right? Well, if you just look at the cloud, like that's so far away, and let's talk about when you hear the sound versus when you see the lightning, right? We educate. And I call it name it to tame it. If we understand the concept cognitively, we're less likely to react emotionally. So when kids are kind of having the ups and downs, it's helping them figure out the underlying problem. And here's a hint, parents, it may not be what you think it is. As parents, we are trying to take care of our kids and navigate this disease that changes the rules on us, right? It loves to change the rules. Things work one day, they don't work the next. It can be very difficult to navigate care, to access care for our kids. That creates our own issues as caregivers. So it can be really easy to look at our kids and our brain is going to attribute everything to the JA. It's going to go worst case scenario. Oh, they're sad because something's wrong, they're in pain, right? Or they're angry because something happened at school because of the arthritis. It's helping the kids learn to tell you, show you who they are within this disease. So having the questions like, hey, what are you feeling today? What's going on? And not assuming, let them make the connection that's to the arthritis. It may or may not be, right? So you're having conversations about feelings and coping in general, not tied to a specific thing. So it's like, well, I'll ask, not just the basic, well, how do you feel about that? I'll say something like, do you feel that somewhere in your body? Well, yeah, I get real tense or I get nauseous, right? We get nausea with some kind of anxiety or fear sometimes, or I just feel heavy. That tends to be like a sadness or a depression. Or I'll say, what would make it better? And their answer might surprise you. What would make it better might be something completely irrelevant. What would make it better is my friend not telling me that my shoes were ugly today. Oh, totally not related to arthritis. It's not that the shoes aren't supporting your feet. It's that someone had a middle school opinion. Okay, completely different take. So you're teaching them about feelings and about coping skills in general, initially. When it comes to things that are arthritis specific, then we deal with that. But we want to have a foundation to build on. So you want them to know how to work through fears, working through sadness, working through feeling left out from friends, working with disappointment. I often tell parents to practice disappointment, right? When that thing when we say, like, parents are like, well, maybe, and the kids are like, that means no, right? That's a good thing. We want them to practice. We've all done it. We've all done it. Can we get ice cream? Maybe. Let's see how the day goes. It's like, we never did that. They're like, fine, maybe means no, right? But we want them to go, yeah, and that's okay. We'll try again tomorrow. That resilience. So you want them to practice having disappointments. They come at you, oh my gosh, I didn't make the team. I didn't get picked for this. And they're all upset. Don't react and go, yeah, I guess that happens sometimes. You're not being insensitive. You're not supporting them. You're kind of neutralizing and showing them that that's not an emergency. That's okay. And then talking to them about how they feel instead of keeping them experiencing their feelings. The more you can do that with the everyday little life stuff, better. For younger kids, they don't have that panel yet. Go back to Inside Out. They don't have all those buttons. But they can start to relate to other people. So we look at characters and shows, books, asking them, well, if you were that person, how would you feel? Or what do you think they should do next to make that person feel better or feel safer, right? You can ask those questions. They project really, really well. You can also share your own experiences. Now, we can't always relate, right? I can't imagine going through middle and high school with a smartphone these days. If all of my stuff was recorded and out there, I think I would have turned out a little bit differently, right? So we can't relate to every detail, but you can relate through the feelings. You can tell your kid, yeah, I remember when I felt really embarrassed. You don't have to give the details, even though if you use embarrassment, a warning, they're going to want the dirt. But you can say, I remember when I felt this way, and this is what made me feel better. Right. So we're talking generalized. When we draw down into the JA stuff, I typically see it in a few different areas. I typically see it with shots, right? Medical interaction, medical engagement. If it's at home or if it's in the doctor's office, any kind of procedure, any kind of imaging. Some kids are afraid of MRIs, kind of being closed in. Um, and then we see the social impacts. Kids are not worried until like middle or high school about how's this going to affect me as an adult, right? That's our worry. They're more looking at, okay, if I take my shot, I'm really tired and my friend's birthday party is Saturday, that kind of thing, and Friday shot night. So it's looking at, yeah, there are going to be some JA specifics, but try to keep it general because those skills will transfer.
When they're in pain and they're really getting to those points, how do you, in that disappointment side, especially as a parent, we watch our kids be disappointed, and you kind of talked about that. We say, well, we'll think about it, or maybe next time, and then they go, okay, well, maybe next time, building that mental piece to it instead of always meaning it's negative. But when they encounter that over and over, and it's not saying coming from a parent, but even coming from a peer, where they're not getting picked and they're starting to feel like maybe it's my disease that's stopping me from being chosen. How do we build that resilience on the negativity to kind of counteract the negativity as it builds so many times?
Yeah, it's allowing them some space for it. So we want to go ahead and feel those feelings, right? We don't avoid and shut down. We want to feel those feelings, feel that disappointment, that sadness, that anger, but don't take up residence in that space, right? You get those feelings out and then you focus on, well, what went well? Did you get positive feedback? Was there specific feedback? So when when my oldest was joining marching band, he really wanted to march in the drum line. And not quite in the cards for him. That was a really bad year for him. He had a flare that was making his stomach inflame and he was throwing up at school. It was, JA loves to change the rules on us, right? It's a little crazy time for him, but he wanted to join the marching band as an eighth grader. And he's in the front ensemble where they play the mallet keyboards and things like that. And he was feeling really bad and just really upset and embarrassed. He couldn't be in the drum line like everybody else. But let's fast forward 5 years. He has incredible multi-mallet skills. He is the percussion captain this year. He's become quite the leader in it. And his keyboard skills are above his age level for a high school student. And that's an opportunity he would not have had. It's like, look at the positives. Okay, you're sad you can't march, but you get to learn this new thing. That's an unexpected silver lining. Kids can't see that, right? It's very limited. And they're not going to listen to us saying, well, but you never know. No, you let them have their feelings and you help them discover what were some positives or even what's neutral. What could you do next time? How do you want to handle this? Most mental health comes down to this concept of connection, right? If we're connected with others, that's going to be the biggest protective factor. It's one of the reasons, as you mentioned, I've been a volunteer in the planning committee for Summit since 2016. We've been attending since 2015. We've done 9 consecutive conferences or summits. And the reason that we do it, we go back, is the connection. And it started out for our kids, right? But now we go to Summit for the parents, right? You and I met at a summit. My husband has his own group chat with his JA dad group, and chat I don't ever want to see. They have those connections too. You get these friendships. Our kids need that too. And it doesn't necessarily have to be on one thing. We want social connection to be varied, right? As adults, we understand, oh, I might have my work friends, my college friends, my high school friends, my mom friends, my neighborhood friends, right? We have different circles we travel in. Same for kids. So for younger kids, most of their friendships are determined by geography, right? Who's in their neighborhood, who goes to their school, who's in their classroom, right? They may have a recess friend and a class friend, right? It's very geographical. But kids, even at that young age, understand what we call social matching. They can see and go, oh, you're like me or you're different. They respond to it differently than older children or adults, but they're already picking up on these differences. So the earlier we can get kids connected in a variety of ways, the better. So my older teenagers, actually all of my teenagers have their JA friends because Summit is amazing with having a sibling track, right? As you know, so our kids have met both in the JA stuff, but in the sibling stuff. So my youngest, who is the sibling, he's got friends from Summit. They all have their arthritis related circles, and those are spread out over the country, right? They've got friends all over the country at this point, going to this event year over year. But then they also have friends that are just they only see in band, and then they may have friends that they play with online, right? They've got all of my kids have a safe circle of online friends that we all know in person as well to keep that internet safety, right? Then they've got friends they hang out with on their respective teams or other organizations that they're in. So they've got these multiple circles, and that's what we're looking for.